Hi everyone, I'm Eli Sparks, Curriculum Manager and a Food Educator with Local Matters, and I'm excited to be back once again with you all today for our third Digital Food Matters lesson. Over the past couple weeks, we've been learning about a new food group from our My Plate. It's our final food group on the My Plate. Do you remember the name of it? That's right, protein. We've been learning all about protein, especially plant proteins that are important here in Ohio and around the world. And over the last school year, even before we started sharing these videos with you, we've learned a whole lot from our My Plate chart. We've learned that dairy, being the smallest food group, is more like a sometimes food. And even though some people can get good calcium from dairy, not everyone can eat it. They'll have to find their calcium from leafy green vegetables and other sources. We've learned that all fruits have seeds, whether it's a pumpkin, an avocado, or an apple. If it has a seed in the part we eat, it's a fruit. We've learned that grains are usually best if they're brown, because that tells us that it might be a whole grain. And whole grains are better for our bodies. They give us energy for a longer period of time, along with fiber and vitamins. To be sure you're eating a whole grain, read your ingredients and make sure it says whole in that first ingredient. We've learned about vegetables and how vegetables can come from 5 parts of the plant, from the roots, the bulbs, the stems, the leaves, and the flowers. And over the last couple videos, we've talked about protein. What does protein do for us? Do you remember? That's right, let's do it together. Protein gives our brains, hearts, and muscles power. Protein gives us power. And we've learned about plant proteins that are especially healthy because of all the good fats inside. Also, beans are relatively easy to grow around the world. They can be a lot cheaper than protein from animals like meat, and they're very versatile. You can do so much with beans. In our first lesson over the last few videos, we talked about one bean that's very important here in Ohio: soybeans. Do you remember what soybeans can be used to make? They can be used to make tofu. Tofu, a whole new protein source. By using soybeans to make tofu, you can get protein from plants that's a lot different than just the bean itself. The same goes for something like chickpeas or garbanzo beans. You can take chickpeas and blend them together, add some ingredients, and make hummus, a protein source that comes from plants but is very different from the bean itself. Last week, we learned about a different kind of bean in a new country. What country did we visit last week? That's right, India. We learned all about how diverse India can be. There are 22 different recognized languages in India. There are many different religions and traditions, and many people in India choose to get their protein only from plants. What's the name of that special flat and round bean we learned about last time? Share it out loud. Yes, lentils. We learned all about lentils and how they're enjoyed in India and around the world as a really great protein source. They're often eaten with rice, which makes it an even healthier combination for our bodies. This week, we're going to use our imagination to travel again. We're going to go to a new country, somewhere we haven't visited yet during our Food Matters lessons. And it's a country that's very important to us in the United States, in part because it's our neighbor. Today, we're going to learn a little bit more about the country of Mexico, or Mexico. Right here is Mexico. And if you look just north of Mexico, this country that's represented in yellow is the United States. We live right here in Columbus, Ohio. And right to the south of us, we have this special line that separates the United States from Mexico. We call that a border. Countries all over the world have these lines that represent the end of their country and the beginning of another one. And then along this southern border, we share space with the country Mexico. So Mexico is our neighbor, just like you have neighbors maybe next to you in your apartment or next to your house. We have neighbors as a country. We have Canada as our neighbor to the north, and Mexico is our neighbor to the south. Mexico is a very interesting country. Here in Mexico, since we're closer to that line that goes around the center of the globe, right? What is that called again? The equator. Yes, the equator. So we know that since Mexico is closer to the equator, it's going to be a little warmer than it is in the rest of the United States. In Mexico, although many people speak English, the language that's most commonly spoken is Spanish. So if you went to visit Mexico, or you were having a conversation with someone from Mexico here in the United States, to say hello, you might say, hola. Everyone practice that. Can you all say hola? That means hello in Spanish. Spanish is the most commonly spoken language in Mexico, although there are over 60 recognized languages. People have been living in Mexico for thousands of years, and many languages have developed in that region. And in Mexico, just like in many places around the world, there are traditions of growing food. One food that's grown in Mexico is a plant protein that's especially important to Mexican cuisine, Mexican style cooking. And that's this bean right here. Black beans. Beans, or frijoles in Spanish, are a wonderful plant protein. Already we've talked about soybeans, lentils, which are a special kind of bean. I mentioned chickpeas and garbanzo beans earlier today. And black beans are another important bean that can be a great source of protein. Black beans are now enjoyed around the world, but they're native to the Americas. They've been growing in places like Mexico for a long, long time. Black beans give us protein just like those other beans. And later this week, you'll see a recipe from Mr. Martin that you'll be able to try at home using black beans. In Mexico, because that tradition of growing is so strong, just like it is in many places around the world, many people look for work through growing food. Many people from Mexico work on farms, and that's how they earn a living. But some people who work on farms from Mexico travel not only throughout Mexico, but into the United States to work in the fields. Many people from Mexico work in the fields of farms right here in Ohio. And I want you to think about something. Many times, the people who work in those fields have families. And families will travel together from place to place, working hard jobs in fields, planting and harvesting food. So what do those children do that go with their families as they travel from place to place working on farms? What do they do for school? Right now, many of you are learning from home. So you're experiencing a new way of learning, something many of you are not used to. In the same way, many children of migrant workers, that's the term we have for people that travel to work from place to place. Many children of migrant workers have to learn on the go. Sometimes they'll be in a school for part of the year, and then they'll move to another place and go to a new school for another part of the year. Oftentimes they have to learn from home or while they travel, just like you're learning from home now. I want to show you some images of a family of farm workers working hard in the fields. And I want you to think about how difficult this will be. We'll hear more about this book later this week. But I want to point a couple images out to you. Here, we see a family of migrant workers traveling into a farm where they found some work. And you can look closely and see that the food growing on this farm is apples. These are apple trees. So this is an apple orchard. Remember, orchards are farms where food or fruit is grown on trees. So this is an apple orchard. And you can imagine all the work that it would take to climb ladders up to these treetops and pull those apples from those branches all day long, climbing ladders, climbing back down, moving baskets of apples from place to place. And then this family, once those apples are harvested or picked when they're ready, they might move to a beet farm. And we know beets come in what food group? What food group do beets fit into? Vegetables. That's right. Beets are bulb vegetables. So it's a lot different than the harvesting that would be done on an apple orchard, because here we can see folks have to dig up the beets from underground. They're bending over and squatting all day long in the sun, and they have to harvest those beets from underground rather than from the branches of trees. And once that job is done, this family may move to another orchard, like this one here. This is a peach orchard. This is a peach orchard, and you can see the hard work being done here. And again, it's not just the adults helping, the children are helping too. So while they have to learn on the go, many times children are farm workers themselves. They themselves are migrant workers. So you can imagine how difficult this might be, to travel from place to place, have to move from school to school all year long. And right now, at a time when many of us are trying to work from home or learn from home, we still have to eat food. And we still have to get to the grocery store or have our food brought to us. And that food is being grown somewhere where migrant workers are working hard to plant and water and harvest those delicious foods, including things like black beans. So take a moment today to be grateful for the hard work that migrant workers do to allow us to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Lastly, I want to share with you one other piece from this book. And again, we'll read more from this book later this week. But I want to share with you right here this image, again, of that family of farm workers along with some other folks. And I want to read you just this one section. Farm workers. Farm workers is the name we give to the people who work the land, who harvest the fields, united beneath one sky. Thank you, farm worker, for the fruits of your hands have brought me. I will grow stronger and kinder as I eat what you have grown. Again, imagine this is a field of black beans, and the hard work they're doing to harvest those beans will allow us to enjoy the power we can get from plant proteins, the strength for our brain, heart, and muscles. And it also helps us grow kinder as we remember all the effort it takes for us to enjoy the foods we need to be healthy. Thank a farm worker today. Be grateful for the hard work that migrant farm workers do throughout our country, even right here in Ohio. Thanks, everyone. See you later this week.